Scotty and I are going to talk a little bit off the top about Rob Wright. And, this saga continues, and it's not like we're drumming up. We don't have to look far for content. I mean, if you would all follow college basketball, the Big 12, of course, Baylor, BYU, if you're scrolling through your Twitter feed, you saw yesterday the reaction. First you saw what Rob Wright, finally, it was officially released, I guess, earlier this week, a few days ago, that he was going to go to BYU. Then we actually heard from Rob for the first time. He left me out in the cold with my interview request. So we heard from Rob for the first time about exactly why he left Baylor. The reasons behind it. We got reaction from Fran Fraschilla, friend of the show, mentor of mine in some respects. We'll get to that in a second, but I want to get to what Rob said first, which could be perceived as a slap in the face to Baylor. Just totally being transparent. Not that Rob meant it that way, but it could be perceived that way. So it starts with saying, everybody, of course, and there's a negativity to social media and to reaction, especially here in Central Texas. There's a hurt around the fact that a guy who was instrumental to your success last year, your success was a little above average at best, right? Certainly not to the standard that Baylor has created over the past several years. But Rob said, hey, as far as financial agreements were concerned and NIL money, that was down the list of reasons why I left Baylor to go to BYU. And he talked about what I have talked about, and I've talked about this because of my experience calling Big 12 games, being around the conference, hosting Inside the 12 with King McClure, and talking to just a lot of people throughout the landscape of college basketball. I'm blessed with the opportunities to call these games, and with that comes access to coaches and other analysts, and it's really something I treasure because I do become party to a lot of information, and a lot of the positive information around BYU stems from their hire of Kevin Young. And it's almost become a copycat situation. Is right down the road in Salt Lake, Alex Jensen is hired, right, to coach the Utes. There was a time this year where the Utes were actually heating up and playing well. They had beaten BYU at home, and they kind of got on a roll. This was a little later in the season. And the first time they stumbled, coach is fired. Let's bring in Alex Jensen, right? Because, and there's truth to some of this, they saw what was going on in Provo and the success that Kevin Young was having, not just on the court, but with his recruiting. Igor Demon, AJ DeBonsta, and now Rob Wright III coming over in the portal. But Rob said it was because of Kevin Young's professional basketball player development, right? And Kevin Young, the top assistant, some said in the NBA for a handful of years, an assistant for a long time, but had really ascended up the ranks, being considered one of the best assistants in the NBA, is hired by BYU. And the reason he was hired was because there's a lot of reasons, but that a guy like Kevin Young bringing that NBA pedigree and that player development pedigree is going to be extremely attractive. Well, that's exactly what Rob said. I'm going to read you the quotes. And he says, look, NIL, this is Rob's quote, "It's cool the players get paid now, but that didn't really factor into too much into my decision. It was really for my growth and my development as a player. I kind of just thought coming to BYU and being around guys who have seen the NBA at the highest level and just what they are building and everything, I just didn't want to pass that up. It really didn't have too much to do with NIL." You can't say that that's untrue because Igor Demon is going to be a lottery pick. AJ DeBonsta is a 5-star guy. Rob is a 5-star guy. Kevin Young, with his NBA ties and his NBA pedigree and his ability to develop players. Again, something I heard former players talk to me about this year, current players talk to me about this year, and coaches. Everyone is very excited about Kevin Young's ability to develop young talent. But hold on. Now, in Central Texas or all over the country where Baylor alum may find themselves, you hear that and you think, whoa, wait a minute. Tunde Yesufu, after this year, is more than likely going to be a first-round pick. That will be the 7th straight year Baylor has a first-round pick. BYU hasn't had a guy drafted since Jimmer Fredette. Now, that's going to change this year with Igor Demin. And I think when so two things can be true at once. Like, Rob can want to get more player development, right? But Baylor has done a wonderful job with NBA player development. Scotty, I bring you in. What do you make of those comments as someone who has followed the Big 12 for a long time? Obviously, you got Baylor in your DNA. I'm going to get up
and fix my camera and come back because that is way too
I like it like that. I think you look handsome, Scotty, but okay. But then Fran Fraschilla weighs in, but we'll let Scotty weigh in first. So what do you, and let me read this one, okay?
Yep.
This is one quote which specifically kind of gets into Baylor. Yeah, this is Rob's quote. By the way, on the record, I am like a big fan of Rob. It goes back to our Philadelphia Catholic League roots. We both played in the Philly Catholic League. Rob, somewhat after my time. Here's the quote. Yeah, my year in Baylor, it was good. There were a lot of ups and downs just on the basketball side. But overall, I had a lot of fun at Baylor, he said. I appreciate their fan base and everything like that, but I just felt like I was ready for something different and things like that. So it was nothing personal at all. But that first sentence is a little, yeah, my year at Baylor, it was good. And then he says, there were a lot of ups and downs just on the basketball side. And we had heard rumblings this year that, and I think that's what you get all over the country. This is not unique to Baylor because that's a pretty healthy program as far as the mentality goes, and it starts with Scott Drew. But there was a lot of stuff that we heard, guys not playing that maybe could have played, a little bit of frustration around NIL stuff. And Rob was caught up. He was clearly a guy that just wanted to play basketball.
Yeah.
And we saw that. It played out on the floor. He was terrific for Baylor, 11 points, 4 assists a game, all Big 12 honorable mention, of course, all freshman team. And he was like Cool Hand Luke out there when he was in control. The lights are not too bright for this dude, but I digress. What do you got?
I want to address real quick. Bear the Truth mentioned we should move on from the Rob Wright convo. I just want to say we're not digging for content. No. You pointed out as you walked in today, this was a national headline yesterday.
Yeah, it was.
What Rob said. So we've talked about it. We're going to continue talking about it. I would prefer to move on.
Yeah.
Let me just start by saying, I said
And by the way, Mosley had me on his show yesterday just to talk about this after this stuff happened, after the reaction. And I was like, why am I talking about this on Mosley's show? This is for my show. But go ahead.
So we're going to do it.
Yeah.
Listen, I said in December, before he really even peaked at Baylor, Rob was one of my 4 favorite point guards to ever play at Baylor. I love his game.
Yeah.
If he had solely said, I really expected to compete for a national championship at Baylor, and last season was rough, I think every single one of us would go, fair.
Yeah.
Even though Drew was preparing to build a new team around you, even though you were very beloved on campus and around Waco, and I hope had a good experience off the court, if it was just basketball reasons from this past season, I think all of us would go, yep, cool.
Yeah.
The NBA development comment is the most asinine, unfounded, out of whack, pulled out your butt thing I've ever heard. Yeah. And I am prone to hyperbole, but you mentioned a few of the stats. Here's a few more. Baylor has had 5 players drafted in the first round over the last 4 years. This year, VJ will make that 6 players in 5 years. The next year, Tunde will almost certainly make it 7 players in 6 years. Yeah. So do not talk about recent, success with Scott Drew getting due to the NBA. Do not talk about player development when I've sound like a broken record on the Pete Souza show saying Pierre Jackson came to Baylor as a JUCO guy, left as an NBA basketball player. Corey Jefferson and Taurean Prince came in as 2-star recruits, left Baylor as NBA players. Taurean Prince is still in the league.
Yeah.
Like, that is Scott Drew's development. Baylor has 11 active NBA players as of this season.
Really?
11.
Wow.
Baylor.
I would like, by the way,
has 11.
By the way.
BYU, I just have to finish that thought. BYU has
0. Well, and I would love to, and you can't say it's two totally different bites out of the apple because Baylor has the same coach. Scott Drew coached all 11 of those guys.
That's true.
But it's not like Scott Drew moved on and there's a new coach at Baylor. So it would make sense if Rob said that because then we would be talking about the program from a holistic viewpoint.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it would be okay if we're getting down to it. It's different coaching staff. Like that history is gone. With BYU, I'll say you can't really say that BYU has 0 guys in the NBA. And the reason I say that is because that whole era of BYU basketball is gone. They've turned the page to a brand new coach who's doing things differently this year. So
totally, I feel that. Yeah.
But bring up the Fraschilla quote. I thought this was super interesting.
Totally.
Fran tweeted this yesterday, and you could tell it was a little passive aggressive. Read that because I can't see it.
Jay Drew was tweeting the Rob Wright quotes. Rob says, I kind of just thought coming to BYU and being around guys who have seen the NBA at the highest level and what they are building and everything, it's just I didn't want to pass that up. It didn't have too much to do with NIL. To which Fran Fraschilla responds, I love Rob Wright. I love BYU. I love Coach Drew. I love everyone. I think Baylor men's basketball will have 7 straight years of first-round picks. So he's not just projecting next season. He's actually projecting one more as well. At least Rob didn't say he wanted to get closer to home, winky face, which is that's very sassy coming from one very classy Fran Fraschilla.
Yeah, and I think that was the big story yesterday. And then you saw AJ DeBonsta came out and he had a quote that we got a certified bucket getter. And I don't think you can really. The excitement in Provo should be at a very high level.
Very high.
And for a very good reason. All the pieces are there for them to explode next year.
Absolutely.
We're still waiting. I don't know if Richie Saunders is coming back.
He said he is.
He said he is.
He said, I think early this week or late last week, he said he is. Yeah.
Okay.
So, no, that roster's going to be stacked. I've got another thought on the NBA thing and one thought about that, and then we can do it.
I would like to see, we got to figure out where Baylor is in the pecking order of NBA active players. I'd be very interested to see who has more than 11.
I can check when I'm off screen.
Yeah,
because that's a great question. Not BYU.
Yeah.
My thought on that, too, with the NBA thing, right? I think it would be one thing if you said, well, those are all the players that played on the national championship team, but it's 2 or 3 of those guys, Flagler, Butler, and Mitchell. I think it'd be one thing if you said, oh, that's all one-and-dones who were guaranteed NBA stars.
Yeah.
But that's like 3 or 4 of them. Then you've got Taurean Prince and Royce O'Neal, who were at Baylor way before the national title. Mm-hmm. And you've got a guy like Yves Missi, who came in totally under the radar. I think he was a 4-star recruit, but totally not. Everyone was like, he's not NBA ready. He's so raw. And in one season, Scott Drew had him a first-round pick, and he's going to be an all. I think, have they announced the all-rookie teams yet?
I don't know, but
I don't think they have. He's going to be on the all-rookie team.
When I talked to my buddies last week, the guys I went to dinner with the Raptors when they were in town, they love Jacoby. Like Jacoby Walter, they say he's gotten better and better and better.
Yeah. Dude, the Heat traded for Davion Mitchell, and the other, I don't remember if it was last night or 2 nights ago when they beat the Bulls. He was the catalyst.
Yeah.
He was 5 for 5 from the floor with 9 assists, 2 steals, no turnovers, locking down their best player the whole game.
Scotty, a walking box score. I love it.
Bro, listen.
I love a walking box score.
Ray J. Dennis, as recently as last season, came to Baylor as a guy, he's not an NBA player, he's just a solid college player. He's in the NBA.
Yeah.
Point guard. That's where you want the one-to-one comparison, undersized point guard. That Rob Wright, you could have been this and probably, let's just be honest, you probably got more tools at 18 than Ray J. Dennis did. Mm-hmm. Ray J. Dennis is playing for the Pacers. What are we talking about?
Yeah.
So it makes me mad. Why I'm excited about all of this banter is when Baylor and BYU play next season, it's going to be
question for you.
Electric.
You know this family of Baylor basketball fans better than I do. What kind of reception will he get? Will it be like a freezing cold reception? Will it be chilly? Will it be warm?
I think this is actually really easy to predict because I saw it when Houston was in town. LJ Cryer was booed every time he touched the ball, and he left 3 years ago. And frankly, left, and most of us were like, oh, yeah, he was our fifth guard. Bye.
Yeah.
Turned into an excellent player, but he was booed every time he touched the basketball a month and a half ago. And he played great. But this is way more contentious.
Yeah.
Again, some of his words yesterday, are throwing some water or throwing some coals at Baylor. Hey, let me kind of kick you on my way out the door. He is going to get harassed, I think, like no one else has been harassed at Foster Pavilion. And it looks like Bear the Truth agrees with me. The largest boo fest ever, and then just to double down, all caps, ever. So I agree. I think it's going to be. And I think that's fun, by the way. That's the element of college sports that we've lost some with regional rivalries and other changes. Dude, Baylor and BYU both being religious schools, there's already a little bit of a natural rivalry there.
Yeah.
But now your star point guard from last season is their star point guard. BYU is going to be picked probably to finish top 3 in the conference. Baylor's going to be kind of the underdog, but I think, as I said earlier this week, I think Baylor's putting together the roster to be right there with everybody. Especially if it's a competitive. Oh my gosh, dude!
You should have seen it this year. I actually was calling that game when Caleb Lohner came back with Utah. He got booed. No, he didn't. Nobody really cared about that.
Well, yeah, he was a backup post player. He went to play football.
And by the way, I think he's geared up for the draft. It'll be interesting to see if he gets a sniff.